Hey everyone, Toby Large here, bringing you my Fantasy EFL Game Week 7 preview. We've got so much to discuss today, including so many assets ahead of the next week of Fantasy EFL that look absolutely brilliant. So, without further ado, let's get into it and discuss a massive week that is pending. Unfortunately, before we dive into all of next week's action, we've got to have a little recap as to how Game Week 6 went, and I don't really want to talk about it, to be honest. I just feel cursed at the minute. I feel like everything that I'm doing, I'm highlighting the right players in these videos, but then when it comes to my team selection, I'm picking the wrong ones every time, or I'm narrowly missing out on what is a really good pick. And then some of the picks that I think did well this week, I really wasn't a fan of. As I discussed last week, we had like the Norwoods and the Cozy Dewberries, who, to be fair, with ACD, I think that his numbers are starting to look really good. But the Norwood pick, a penalty, it is what it is. If you pick a penalty taker, then you're entering yourself into that lotto to do really well. So it is what it is. I think some of my picks were really unlucky. I think some of them were just pretty terrible as well. We had 2 yellow cards in the team. We had 2 early substitutions, one being Wright at half time. Wright at half time had 6 clearances. He had an error leading to goal, so that's why he was subbed off. But 6 clearances, if he keeps it up towards the end of the game, I think you're looking at least 4 or 5 points. He only ends up with 1 point in the end. So for a defender to get subbed at half time, I think is really unlucky. Cambridge's loss to Oldham was Oldham's first win of the season. So Brophy I wasn't too hopeful for anyway. I didn't really like the midfield options. But the Cambridge pick, they'd won 2-0. They'd won 2-0 actually in their game previous at home. So I don't know, it is what it is. Joe Lowe, my captain, they conceded a 98th minute consolation goal, which doesn't mean anything for the team pick, but it's still a -2 in terms of my score. And I didn't back Cabia. It was between Cabia and Sanders, and I've had Cabia in for 4 weeks in a row before last week. I went for Sanders over him because they were facing off, and obviously made the wrong call there. Sanders, who had averaged 16 clearances before, barely hitting a clearance in that game, and Cabia scores and gets a couple of shots on target. So a painful week. It's tough to take, but I highlighted a lot of players last week who did really well. I'm confident that my luck will turn and it's just around the corner, but hopefully we're going to hit it soon. I know I'm stinking up the gaff with my rank, but there's plenty of time to go, and as I always say, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Am I slipping further down the league when I didn't think it was even possible? Yes, but hopefully this week we can turn it around, and I'm still hopeful, and we've pinpointed loads of picks who I think are really exciting, so let's dive into it. Yeah, keeping my head up this week, trying to highlight some picks who are going to do really well for you guys and for myself as well. I think that I've helped some people out so far, and some of the picks that I'm identifying are doing really well, but just when it comes to my own team selections, they just haven't been great, or they've got really unlucky so far this season. But as I say, confident that it will turn. And with the club picks this week, I think there's some great options in here. I actually found it easier to pick the players this week rather than the clubs. There's only a few that really jump out to me that I think, yeah, you probably should or will win that game. Well, there's a few in here that I am pretty confident with. The first one being Swindon. Interestingly, 8% I think is really high for Swindon, and they're really shooting up in terms of people expecting a win from them. I think that Huddersfield are still the highest picked team in there this week. They're on about 21% as I record this. But I think their game being at Bradford is just a really tricky game. So not mentioning Huddersfield this week because I think that's a tough fixture, but obviously they could still get a win. They're just a quality team. Swindon against Harrogate. Harrogate not great in front of goal, although Swindon defensively, they're not doing great in terms of clean sheets, but their defensive numbers are really solid. Their XG numbers, absolutely brilliant. So with them flying high in the league at the minute, I don't see why backing them isn't a good idea. They've only had 2 0-pointers this season, and guess who picked them for one of those 0-pointers? Obviously me. Yeah, I'm not salty whatsoever, as you can tell. But I think that Swindon are a really good pick for this week. Confident in them. Cardiff against Stockport. Stockport away, obviously a tricky place to go, and I've got nothing against Stockport, I promise, to any of their fans watching, because I actually think that they are a real promotion favourite and probably will go up this year. But Stockport, they've only got 1 win in 5 games at the minute. They're not impressing me as much as I thought that they would do, but maybe they just need a bit of time for some of the new signings to come through, your Nathan Lowe's, to really start impressing. And Cardiff just look so solid defensively. that I don't think you can look past them in any game. 5 out of 6 clean sheets is unbelievable. 8.3 average points, truly outstanding. So what a start to the season for Cardiff. Their attacking numbers great, defensive numbers just a level above anybody else. So can't complain with the Cardiff pick. I'm not going there myself because I'd rather wait for a double game week with a team who are as good as them, but I really don't think it's a bad idea. Bristol City at Sheffield Wednesday. Now this is one because I don't think that you're ever really confident in a team like Bristol City. They're one of those who could win or lose against anybody, maybe sometimes perform better against the really good teams in the league actually. But I think with how bad Sheffield Wednesday have been doing, no win yet in the league, and the turmoil at their club, I just think that Bristol City targeting them, the away ceiling, is a good plan. Leicester again play Oxford, who don't have a win. Same as West Brom actually. All those 3 championship teams who are next to each other in my table there. Yeah, all really similar thoughts on them all. None of their data is necessarily outstanding, but they're playing teams who haven't won yet, and they're all teams who you're expecting to be towards the top end of the table. So I think they're all solid picks. The West Brom pick specifically, I actually feel really good about, because Derby, although they've scored in every game so far, they've only had, I think it's less than 4 expected goals, so they're averaging less than 1 XG per game, 2 of those being from penalties from Morris. So I just think that Derby, they're going to stop scoring at some point soon. The data suggests that they are due it, and West Brom defensively are pretty solid as well. So yeah, really looking at the West Brom pick, and I think that that is one of the highlights for me this week. Gillingham, I have to mention them because of this unbelievable unbeaten run that they're on. Gareth Ainsworth, I love saying it because he's a Wycombe legend, but he's doing such a good job at Gillingham. Against Notts County, which is a fairly tricky fixture, but just with the momentum, that run that Gillingham have, a home game against anybody, I would be backing them in at the minute to get a win. So I think that Gillingham is a pretty solid shout. And then mentioning my Wycombe boys, I'm actually not in a Wycombe shirt today, in a Millwall shirt, which I pulled in a recent video. So if you've not watched my mystery EFL shirts opening that I uploaded a couple of days ago, go and watch that because very interesting video. But watch that after this video. You know, you can wait around a little bit first. But yeah, no Wycombe shirt today, but Wycombe included in the video, which I've been waiting to do for ages. But we got a win to nil, and I think that our defensive data suggested that this clean sheet was coming, this win was coming. Our attacking numbers are solid, our defensive numbers really solid. I think all of our wins under Mike Dodds have been with a clean sheet as well. So we're actually a really solid team when we don't concede an early goal. And Peterborough, who were playing just rock bottom of the league, only 1 point on the board, I believe. Yeah, I'm not going to be backing it myself, I don't think. But if you want a real differential this week, I think that a team playing against 24th in the league who are really struggling, and we look like these clean sheets could start, you know, tallying up and we build some momentum, I don't think that Wycombe is the worst idea in the world. But a bit of an outside shout for you there, but I have to give a shout out to my boys. So that's my thoughts on the team picks. Bromley and Stevenage as well, don't mind them as picks, especially Stevenage against Mansfield. I think that is a really solid shout too. Lots of options, as always, with the clubs. I'm leaning myself towards Bristol City and West Brom probably, but I think Leicester's up there, but Swindon also really worth considering. With defenders this week, I think that there's so many assets who are standing out, and I genuinely think that any of the 7 players that I've mentioned here, even the ones in the honourable mentions, any of the 10 in total, I could pick in my team. Really like all of the options that we've got going. McCrory especially, his attacking data, a goal and 3 assists, is just outstanding. Against a team like Sheffield Wednesday, who are really struggling at the bottom of the table, I think that he could be a really good pick. However, the only thing that I think about it is, you know, like I watched his game against Sheffield United and they really did well on the counter-attack, whereas I think Sheffield Wednesday will probably play a bit of a low block at times. Maybe not because they're at home, but that sort of might reduce the attacking threat that McCrory has a little bit. But I still think that he's a really good pick and probably has a solid chance of a clean sheet, even if Bristol City's expected goals conceded data isn't the most amazing in the league. Vestergaard, again, feel really good about picking a Leicester defender against Oxford. It's just the fact that they're away that puts me off a little bit, but the data's really good, his clean sheet record's really good, got a goal to his name, so definitely a solid shout. Pierre Gianni, he's more of a clearance getter and somebody who you can always rely on to probably get you a point or two in terms of clearances. Mansfield away is a pretty solid fixture, I think. Really wasn't impressed myself with Mansfield last week. I'm sorry to any Mansfield fans watching, but just thought they didn't put up too much of a fight against us, but maybe that's because they were away from home and they've not got the best record away. Phillips against Derby, I've got him as the picture here, the highlighted player. I feel really good about Phillips this week. Derby, as I mentioned, they have been scoring goals, but not from much XG whatsoever. Phillips and West Brom's data is really good themselves. He's hitting quite a few clearances. He's got that attacking threat as well, just a player who's willing to get his head on absolutely anything. So I think that Phillips could be a really good shout. Makoso, when he's been in the Luton team, has been doing really well. Plymouth have got 2 wins in their last 3, so that makes me think maybe I won't pick this fixture because I think Plymouth at the minute, just not too sure what to expect. And with the signing of Tolaj, I think that maybe their attacking data is going to start to really improve. But don't think it's the worst shout in the world, and 3 out of 4 clean sheets when he's been in the team tells you that, he really makes an impact. Barker, actually a Crawley defender, which I'm sure that not many people were expecting, but his clearance data is just unbelievable. And he's at home to Cheltenham, who have been getting a couple better results recently, but still they are, down at the bottom of League 2, sort of struggling down there quite a lot. So don't think that Barker is the worst shout whatsoever in terms of getting a couple points for clearances on the board, and I'd still say they've got a solid chance against Cheltenham of a clean sheet. And then I've gone for Bagan of Cardiff out of the Cardiff defenders, because I think it's interesting, between him and the rest of their defenders, but I only think that he's not too high selected because of he got subbed off early in the game and he missed a clean sheet just narrowly by a couple of minutes. But other than that, he's been playing 90 every week. I think that that's really hampered his stats, but in terms of the attacking data, he's actually the standout for me. And I can't remember the name of the Cardiff right back, but compared to their right back, I think Bagan at left back, his attacking data is much better. He's got 0.19 against 0.08 on the other side. Is it Capapio? Is that the right player that I'm getting there? Just trying to remember. But yeah, 3 clearances on average compared to 1 on the other side with his right back. I think that he is the standout out of the 2 fullbacks for Cardiff, and it's just a bit up in the air who's going to play at centre back. But yeah, Bagan, the player who I would be targeting from that Cardiff defence. I think that with how good their defence has been, I would be thinking about it, and he might be maybe a smart pick because the data is suggesting that he should be getting a return soon. It is usually in the form of an assist in terms of that data, but really don't mind it. The honourable mentions, Tucker and Dimitri, just really solid assets, get you a lot of clearances and always have a chance of a clean sheet in my opinion. But then I've put Allen in there for Wickham as well, because I think that our defensive data is actually really good, and his attacking data, I think he's on 0.21 expected goals per 90. He's really been popping up, getting in the box, getting himself in areas where he could score, and I think it's only a matter of time before he gets his first goal for Wickham. So an honourable mention there, a bit of a biased one, but I have to get it in there when I can do. And really liking the look of a lot of defenders this week. Personally leaning towards McCrory, Phillips, Allen I like as well, maybe Vestergaard too. So loads of options. Will I go for a 3-back? I don't know, because again, there's some midfield assets that I really like the look of too. I'm absolutely loving the midfield options for game week 7, and I think that I might end up going with 3 in midfield, even though I love the defensive picks, because there's so many of these picks that I think look really good. Kayla Dunn will start with, and he's just got such a high ceiling that I don't think you can really ignore him. Reading struggling down towards the bottom of the league, even though I think they're sort of getting themselves together a little bit, but Barnsley have impressed me so far. And Kayla Dunn, he could score a hat-trick, he could get a brace in nearly any game. He's just one of those players who's got that really explosive factor to him. Cozy Dewberry shut me up last week, let's be honest. I was a bit of a doubter, and I still don't think that his XGI data is very good. But he's getting, he's getting involved in a lot of, plenty of key passes, quite a few shots on target, even if they're not really high quality chances. He did get his goal. It was against 10 men. I think if Wimbledon don't get that red card, maybe he doesn't get the goal in the game. So I think it was a little bit fortunate, but I'm just being an ACD hater here. He's convincing me a little bit because the interception's just really good. When he's that involved in the games, even if the XGI isn't great, I just don't think you can look past him that much. But Leyton Orient away is a pretty tricky place to go to, so I wouldn't be looking at him this week, but I'm starting to lean towards thinking, yeah, maybe he is a really good asset, but just not for me this week. I promise that I'm not a massive hater that much. I mean, if you did pick him and did well, fair play. I'm just jealous. At the end of the day, Isaac Price, his average is just unbelievable. West Brom fans on Twitter, when I posted about him scoring against Germany, which is unbelievable, by the way, in the international break, they were telling me, shut up, stop mentioning him, because he's just such a good player and they think that he's going to go on to bigger things. So Isaac Price, I think he's going to be a really solid asset up until January, when maybe he's going to end up moving on. A goal for Northern Ireland against Germany is just unbelievable and should be so good for his confidence, even if he did miss a penalty in the international break. The fact that he's got the confidence to take some penalties might suggest that he could take one in the future for West Brom. The fixture against Derby, I think, is solid. Their defensive data, not great. They've been conceding in every game so far. So, yeah, feel really good in terms of the price pick, and I think I'm probably looking at it myself. Whittle, his XGI data is just unbelievable, and I don't think you can ever rule him out from potentially getting a goal in a game. His key passes and shots on target, just stupid. 14 key passes, 10 shots on target. Similar with Cozy Debris, just really good underlying data. And then Cabia, myself, I've got to mention him because he's my boy. I want to pick him every week if possible because he's on penalties, he's playing up front, a midfielder who's out of position is just great for the game. Yeah, didn't go for him last week. He punished me. Scored against a defender that I backed against my boy. So I think I've got to put him back in this week. And he's playing against Cambridge, who let me down massively. So I think Cabby's got to go in. And his XGI data, I know he's on penalties and he's had a few penalties, but it's just ridiculous. It's just so good. Albie Morgan, as I always say, probably my favourite fantasy EFL asset from last year. Words can't describe how much I love that guy. And his interception numbers are just great, and he has that extra attacking data that a lot of interception-based assets don't really get. So Northampton away, I think, is a great fixture. Quite a combative place to go to, so hopefully that makes a few interceptions possible. Yeah, with Albie, I like the look of him this week, even though Blackpool are struggling a bit. I just think that he is going to come good and turn into that asset that he was from last year at some point. And then Anis Mehmeti, this could have easily been Scott Twine, but I've gone for Mehmeti. I've got a bit of Wickham bias towards him. I think there's a chance that he takes penalties. I think that he just gets involved again so much for Bristol and away at Sheff Wednesday. I just think you've got to be looking at a fixture like that and targeting it. His average is unbelievable so far, 2 goals and an assist in 4 games. Recharged himself, didn't go on international duty, which I think is a travesty, and Albania should be calling him up. But yeah, really like this guy as an asset, like him as a player, loved him at Wickham, and I think that at Sheffield Wednesday away is a really good place for him to go. And I mentioned to Duke McKenna as well, who had another unbelievable week. He keeps hitting those interceptions, he keeps getting assists. He seems to have those routes to points nailed down. So again, don't think that he's the worst shout in the world when he's hitting interceptions like he is at the minute, when you've got a bit of everything as an asset. My favourites on there, I love the price pick, love Colwill, Cabia and Morgan as well. I've got a little bit of an affinity towards both of them. And Mehmeti, I think, could be a great shout. Him or Twine, it could be pretty interchangeable in people's teams. But yeah, I think that Colwill's data is standout, same as Cabia. I just love loads of those picks, and yeah, could really go for any of them. Okay, sorry for yapping on with the midfield section for a long time, but just a lot to say this week about so many assets that I think look really good. And with the forward section again, I think we've been spoilt for choice with forwards this year, because I think that last year at times didn't feel like there were too many standout forwards in Fantasy EFL. But at the start of the season, there tends to be more that you want to go for than later down the line. But yeah, really liking the look of plenty of these. Dennis, I think for me, is an avoid this week because of how good Gillingham have been, and they can seem to be able to keep a clean sheet against nearly anybody, especially at home. I think that Gillingham are just a really solid side, so the data is unbelievable for Dennis. And if you want to keep backing the player who scored the most goals in the EFL so far, by all means go for it, because you cannot turn your nose up at that. But I just think that it's a tricky fixture. Whereas with Patrick this week, I think that the Newport game is a really solid fixture for him. His data has just been excellent as well. I've not backed him myself yet, and the more that I look at it and look at this list, the more I think maybe I should be going for it with him. But it's just because he's not like an out-and-out striker, and he's never really had this kind of goal scoring in the past, that I think at some point it's got to tone itself down. But when he's getting these kind of numbers and this sort of data, can you really look at it and look past it? I don't know. So maybe I should be looking at Patrick for my own team. With Michael Cheek, I just think, I say it every week, I'm never going to be like, nah, Cheek's a bad asset, because he's one of them who seems to score a goal maybe every other game. And he got a goal and assist last week, I think. The player of the year last year. Oldham, I feel like I target every week and it fails every week. So maybe I shouldn't do it, but maybe for old time's sake, I should just target them until it actually works for me. But the Cheek pick, love it. Same for Sargent. On penalties, I'm pretty sure as well. So 10 average points is just ridiculous. 5 goals in 4 games for him is just superb. It's interesting that a lot of these players also play for teams who are lower down the table. Maybe that's because teams up at the top, they sort of spread the goals out a bit more, whereas the ones who are a bit lower down seem to just have a goal scorer who's scoring all the goals for them. Collins, his numbers for Lincoln are just superb. I've written down a little bit. He got 10 in 20 last year for Lincoln since signing halfway through the season, and then this year he's got 4 goals in 7 games. So he scored 14 goals in 27 for Lincoln, more than a goal every other game. Nearly made the Ennio Luco reference there, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not stooping to that level. But it's just a ridiculous rate of scoring. And when he's on penalties as well, I just think that Collins, I don't really want to overlook him too much, and he's probably in the running for me for the striker slot this week. Drinan, his data in terms of XGI is fine, it's just not amazing, that's why I've not coloured it in. But got a couple goals, goal involvements last week, and again facing the Harrogate side who aren't brilliant, so don't think that Drinan is a bad pick, but I just think there's plays that I prefer to him. And then Reece against Sheff Wednesday, I just think that targeting that Sheff Wednesday fixture is what a lot of people will want to do, and I really don't think that it's too bad of an idea. Honourable mentions to Reed from Stevie, because I like the fixture. He can get himself back scoring. And Kone scored 2 in his last 2 for QPR. So King Kone, I miss you at Wickham dearly, but so proud of him that he's smashing it. And yeah, I don't think that it's the worst idea with Kone in the world, but maybe I'll be waiting for him to score a few more and have a better fixture than Wrexham away. Although he did score a Wrexham away for Wickham last year, so if you believe in that being a good omen, maybe Kone is a good differential for you. But loads of great picks in terms of the forward slot. I'm probably looking at Patrick, Cheek and Collins as the 3. I've got to narrow it down to 1. So let's go into my team selection and see who I've chosen. So my Game Week 7 team selection, here's how I'm looking at the moment. It probably looks similar to a few of the teams that I've backed in the past that haven't done great, but I'm sticking by my own decision making and hoping that it's going to pull through for me. I do like the look of the team at the minute, but as I always say, there's a good chance that it changes and that I swap somebody out. I usually end up with a last minute headache and then really regret it in the end. But yeah, Stolojic in there. I don't like the fact that he's away, but other than that, there's not many home fixtures that I really like for a clean sheet this week. So yeah, targeting a team without a win like Oxford, who are susceptible to a blank, don't mind it, especially with Leicester having 2 clean sheets in their last 2. Phillips against Derby, I think that Derby are due a blank and due to not score in a game, and that West Brom are pretty solid at the back. He's got some attacking threat as well and hit some really nice clearances, so feel good about the Phillips pick this week. Taylor Allen from Wickham. If people are looking at my team and thinking, I'm going to copy this guy because I did well last year, that's one of the plays that I would probably think is really risky and that I wouldn't want to copy myself. I'm just going for it. It's a Wickham pick. That's the fun of the game for me. It's back in my own team, and that's why I love this game so much, because it's got Wickham assets in. That's what I always wanted from a fantasy game. I think he's due a goal. I think it's coming at some point. So I'm going for it, targeting us against bottom of the league. Let's see what happens, because it's not worked for me in the past, but we did get a nice clean sheet last week. Price against Derby as well, and I'll talk about the West Brom team pick too. As I've mentioned, I think that the Derby data is just really bad, especially that attacking data. They've had 2 goals from penalties and their XG is only 3.8 in 4 games. So that tells you that they're really struggling to create at the moment. Cabia, penalty taker against Cambridge, who I want some revenge on after he let me down last week. So going for it with Cabia, backing my boy Morgan, one of my favourite assets ever. And I think that he has attacking threat alongside being a really good interceptor. So I like Morgan as a pick nearly any week, especially when he's got a fixture as good as Northampton. And then Cheek, who's a penalty taker, he just seems to be solid for a goal. He seems to be really steady, always has good attacking threat. So Oldham have hurt me quite a bit this season. So maybe I will change my mind and go for Patrick, or maybe I'll go for Collins, or even a Sargent, somebody like that. But at the moment, I'm with Cheek. But I just think I could swap that out for quite a few different players. And the Bristol City team pick, I want to back Leicester this week, but I've used them once already, and I think there will be 4 weeks in the future in double game weeks when I want to back Leicester. So I'd rather wait for a double rather than using them on a single game week. So I'll go for Bristol City because they've got Sheff Wednesday away, and I think that is a really nice fixture that isn't going to come about too often when you're really confident in an away win, and I feel like they have a good chance of doing that. But let's see how it pans out. My team selections have been all over the place recently and not done amazingly, but hopefully it's going to pull through, and this week we can turn the tide. Fingers crossed. That's all we've got time for this week ahead of Game Week 7. Hopefully all the information is going to help you guys out. Yeah, a big week pending. I'm hoping it's the one. I'm finally going to be able to soar up the rankings and yeah, just get out of this rot that I feel like I'm stuck in at the minute. Maybe I should be going a bit more template and stop backing these differential picks that are obviously hampering me a little bit at the moment, but it's just the fun of it. I'm enjoying myself still, enjoying playing the game, even though my head was a bit gone at the end of game week 6. But hopefully this week we can move on up. Yeah, fingers crossed you've enjoyed the video, all the information. If you could leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done already, that would just mean the world to me. I'm enjoying the YouTube channel so much. It's been so fun, a dream of mine. If you haven't watched my last video before this one, I actually opened 10 mystery EFL football shirts. It was a really fun video to make and to open it all up. It was really good. So if you haven't watched, I'm really proud of how it turned out. Go and check that out on the channel as well. If you've not joined our Fantasy EFL League, the code is FEFLTips as well. So make sure you join in with that. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful week of Fantasy EFL. I will see you here at the same time next week, and hopefully we've all moved up the rankings together. Let's see how it goes. Have a great weekend, guys. Peace.